Welcome to this video tutorial. This one is showing you how the method in context answer is marked. I'm going to be using a student answer that was answered in 2017 with their permission, of course, and it aims to give you an idea about what the examiners are actually looking for when they are doing the methods in context. As always, if you are liking the videos, do not forget to click like and also subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos that I will be doing. So a quick reminder about what the method in context is. It's worth 20 marks. You spend 30 minutes on this answer. It's off paper 1, the education and theory and methods paper. It's always question 5. The instruction is to use the item for the hooks as well as give strengths and weaknesses of the method, and the focus is to apply on the context of education that is given. So just a reminder that you need to make sure that in a methods in context that you are looking at the characteristics of the people, the group, the students, the teachers that are being studied and how it might impact the research. You need to show good AO1 of the method and the characteristics of the research. Make sure you apply it to the school and the context in the question. Use the item and your own knowledge to give yourself the clues. And as always, you need to evaluate strengths and weaknesses, faults and pitfalls of studying the groups in question. So let's have a look at the question that I'm going to be exploring. This is a follow-up from the previous video that I've just done, which is outlining what are the different bands and the different levels. So this is just following up on that. So here's the item and here is the question. So it was from 2017's paper. It's asking you for the strengths and weaknesses of field experiments and looking at the effect of teachers' labelling of pupils. Okay, so we're going to explore a student answer with some commentary from myself as an examiner. So here's my student answer. I have typed it up just so you can understand what she was writing about, and just to make it really easy for me to show you my comments as well. So she starts off with a nice introduction where she's outlining what is a field experiment, and she identifies at least 3 level 3s here. Just a reminder, if you've watched the previous video, level 3 is a sustained strength or weakness of the method only, but it's explained well enough rather than a stated point. Okay, so they've got things like gaining quantitative data, it's testing independent variables, dependent variables, preferred by positivists because it's reliable. So a bit of an introduction, and it gets some of the level 3s out of the way, which is absolutely essential in order to do well on this question. So this student starts off this paragraph using the practical weakness, and what this student does do, I just want to mention this before I go on, is that she uses these signposts throughout her answer. So she indicates that this paragraph is going to be about practical issues, this paragraph is going to be about ethical issues, and this paragraph is going to be about theoretical issues, which she does quite briefly at the end. But it just gives a little bit of structure to the answer. It allowed the student to organise her thoughts, and also it meant that there was a little bit of flow to her answer. That means that she's not jumping from point to point, going from a practical issue back to a theoretical issue and so on. Just a minor point, but it does add to the overall feature to what the answer looks like. So let's have a look at this first one then. So she starts off by stating that the head teacher has to grant the access. The head teacher is the gatekeeper. Now on this own is only a level 3. The student does need to clarify who is the gatekeeper in the educational context and give a little bit more by linking it into field experiments or labelling as well. Now she does do this in the second part of the paragraph, because here's the development. If the findings have the potential to display the school in a negative light because labelling it might negatively impact the educational achievement of different social groups, she has solidified her application to labelling here. There's no link to field experiments at all, but there is some application for her to get to level 4. And then the final part of the paragraph, let me just scroll down just a tad, we've got another level 3, because this time she's talking about the timetable of pupils, which will restrict and it will limit the scale of the research because of timetabling issues. She gives a bit of an example of exam times, but there's no application to labelling, there's no application to field experiments, so that's going to stay at a level 3. Next, the student is continuing with the practical issues. Now, this very mini paragraph is an attempt to apply, but it's really weak. I have a feeling that it won't have been credited at all, to be honest with you, because she's saying a little bit of an amble about effects of teacher labelling on pupils. It enables the research to examine the influence of labelling pupils according to stereotypes firsthand in a natural environment, but she's not clarified what is the influence of labelling pupils, what these stereotypes might be, and what impact might it being in a natural environment actually have on the research. If it's natural, does it raise validity? Why might it raise validity? She could have gone in to talk about the Hawthorne effect, people changing their behaviour by they know that they're being watched, things like that. There's no real development here, so I have a feeling that this would not have been credited at all, but she is trying to stay close to the context that's in the question. We're continuing with the practical issues. This time, this student is talking about how looking at the extent of which students might be labelled and streamed could be difficult. So she's talking about a practical issue about how to replicate a real life process within schools in a field experiment. She goes a little bit of a long-winded way to try to explain it, but I would give it level 5 because of what she's trying to do. She's saying a field experiment might be conducted within a simulated classroom, so an artificial classroom which is created by a researcher who is acting like a teacher. I think that's what she's implying with that, who then is actively judging the pupils on their appearance and measure the effect of labelling on the performance in a given test. So the student is painting a picture about a scenario of what a field experiment might look like. To practically complete the field experiment, in this artificial setup, a classroom would have been used, enabling the researcher control over the variables. Now she's clarifying, but in this scenario, we've got a stand-in teacher. We've not got a real-life teacher in this scenario, so that means that the stand-in teacher, in order to control the variables, the students might not act in a natural manner. She's not said about Hawthorne effect. She's not mentioned about social desirability, which could potentially cost her marks. But she's implying that there is a bit of a problem in trying to simulate a process of the labelling process in a field experiment, which is going to be quite problematic, and the impact of measuring students' achievement because of it is going to be hard to do. And she's trying to convey that across, which I've tried to break it down in my comments to show how I would give it level 5. Concluding this paragraph then, field experiments pose many weaknesses, because now she's clarifying that this process is occurring over a period of years, which is going to be really hard to capture in a field experiment, which is not going to be able to do because potentially it's going to disrupt vital learning and damaging pupils' future through this continuous labelling. So with the previous, that would have been an alright level 5, or it'll be a level 5 and another weak one at the bottom. Okay, so she is trying to develop that there. Turning our attention to the ethical issues, so the student starts off with needed a DBS check, students are under 16, they're a vulnerable group, no impact on field experiments there, no impact on labelling, so that is just a straightforward level 3, but now she is trying to apply it, implying that studying labelling in school and any discrimination in school because of labelling could lead to psychological harm. There is a bit of application there to get her to level 4, and then finally there is another level 4 here. The ethical considerations should be considered by teachers as well. They should have a moral and professional duty to not actively discriminate between their pupils, which might offer an explanation why some teachers might deny access to their pupils within the natural environment. For example, seating arrangements might be a result of labelling, so they might deny that access. That is a decent level 4. It's not specific to field experiments, but it is very good about labelling. It's got a characteristic of labelling. Seating plans could be a very positive, a very strong indication of how a teacher has labelled their pupils, about where they have seated them in the classroom. So that, as an example, is actually perfect to talk about labelling, and she's linked it in to teachers denying access and this moral obligation as well. The student continues with another L4 with another ethical issue. Labelling is a socially sensitive topic. So teachers might be unaware that they're labelling pupils, and if they are, or if the research says that they are labelling pupils, it might damage the teacher's reputation as a result of the research. That is level 4. There's no indication to field experiments, but it's very clear about labelling and about research. The final ethical consideration is the effect and about having consent on these vulnerable groups. It is going to be difficult to obtain. The school is not going to disclose home addresses, so that is going to be a solid level 3. Again, no application. But then she does try to elaborate on this by stating that the people that do respond are more likely to be middle class compared to those that don't, and this means it will not be generalisable to a target population. In providing advice on how to reduce teacher labelling within the education system, she's trying to show that application there, but it's not explicit of how that links to getting consent. Okay, so she's missed a little bit of a trick there, but in this next paragraph she does try to do it. So this cause and effect, the relationship between teacher labelling and the natural environment, field experiments can be considered an objective scientific method which is replicable, and this is enabling advice and potential for training of teachers to identify what labelling is, which could have a positive effect on achievement with the positive labelling. So basically, let's teach teachers, if you label negatively, it's going to have a negative impact. If you teach them positively, you're going to have a positive impact. So the development of the method here, she has tried to do it to say that there is, with methods which are quantifiable, they tend to be used as further advice. Governments might use them in teacher training or whatever, and she's implying that this could be a strength of a field experiment, so she's got a little bit of a level 5 there. The student has ended the answer with a bit of an overall field experiment is appropriate. You can see the effects. It's in a natural environment, so it's a little bit of a summary. There's no further points that are given, a little bit of repetition. Just a little bit of guidance about how it is marked. The general rule that we were given as examiners was that if you had a good breadth of method, which meant practical, ethical, theoretical, and it was conceptually rich, there was lots of detail, you could get up to 12 marks without any application to labelling or any application to school or whatever. If it's just really good on the method, you can get up to 12. Now this student, it was okay, but there was a little bit, it was like you could tell they'd ran out of time at the end, and there was lots of missed opportunities in things like the Hawthorne effect, social desirability, validity, that could have been in there, which wasn't. But the student did a grand job anyway. So you get up to 12, and then what the examiner will do is for every B4 you will just plus a mark, and then for every B5 or level 5 you plus 2 marks. If they are weak, they're just hinting at it, you might halve it. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of an example, when I show you the student answer, this answer had about 7 level 3s. It was a range of the pets, so it was about 10, because I would have liked to have seen that about social desirability and stuff like that. And then there was 3 solid level 4s, so they would have got a point for each, and then there is a half. Point for each, yeah, for 3. And then there was 3 hints which were undeveloped. Okay, so we're going to combine 2 of them to make a final mark, so that's going to be 4. And then the student has got 2 really good level 5, so that's going to be another 4 points because there was one final one which was weak. So overall the student got 18 out of 20. The student has worked really hard at applying the mark scheme. Okay, so thank you for listening.